women's rights campaigner, Kellie Jay Keen. Welcome, Kellie Jay.
Hi.
Now, before we start talking about this burning issue of the moment, really, this is Sarah Pochin. She is the Reform UK MP, the newest MP, the new Runcorn MP. She stood up in Parliament last week and put the cat among the pigeons by terrifying Keir Starmer and saying, would he consider banning the burqa, following several European countries, France, Austria, Denmark, and actually quite a few Muslim countries. Would he consider it? Of course, he was too scared to answer the question. But here's Sarah subsequently, Kelly, came onto my show, and here she is talking about her stance on the burqa.
The burqa is a profoundly misogynistic item, in my view, and very offensive to our British culture. Keir Starmer himself in the last week has talked about this country being an island of strangers. Well, there's no better way to start to change that than to get rid of such items like a burqa, which is so distinctive and so divisive, and actually quite a threatening thing for British people to pass on the streets, or for children to have to come across in school, or whatever area of life it might be. I was a magistrate for 20 years, Kevin. If anybody had walked into my courts wearing such an item, proceedings would have been stopped until the item was removed.
Now, Kelly, I've had a couple of imams on and representatives of Islam on, and what they always say is, look, first of all, why are we getting our knickers in a twist? This is such a small issue because in Britain hardly any Muslim women wear the full face cover, or even the sort of semi face cover. I mean, there are the three extreme ones, or the complete, where you literally there's just a net across there and you can't see them at all. Then there's the one like that, where you can just see their eyes. And then there's that kind of rather sinister one with the sort of nose covering as well. So it's those three are the big face covering ones. And they also are very, very few. I mean, infinitesimal number of women wear them. They're from sub-Saharan Africa and Afghanistan. So it's not really worth talking about this. Now, the last time I had an imam on my show, he told, no, you never see any women with these things. I went out of this studio at the end of the show, went down into London Bridge Station, and coming up the escalator were about 8 of these women with that. And actually, ever since that guy told me that, I've been looking out, as it were, and I see every single day, 10 women with these full things. So I think they're promoting this idea. Oh, this is not worth talking about. There's so few. I don't think that's true. I think there are quite a few. So that's one way to sort of position what I feel about it, that there are a lot of women out there who wear this thing. So what is your position on the burqa, Kellie Jay?
Well, Kevin, about 2 weeks ago, I was at Speaker's Corner with Let Women Speak, and what we do is we go and take up space at the Speaker's Corner where there's a lot of men arguing about God, and it seems to have really changed Speaker's Corner over the years. So we decided that we wanted to ensure that women had their rightful place at actual Speaker's Corner at the last Sunday of every month. And as I was walking away, and I think I just had a conversation with a very woke young American journalist who didn't really like talking about free speech. And I turned, and there were 2 young women wearing the niqab, and the niqab is like the face covering. And I just simply said to those women, free your faces, ladies. Be free, find your liberty, whatever it was. It was free your faces. Now that was shared and that was viewed, 24 million times in like 3 days. Yeah. And I have now received hundreds, like no exaggeration, I've published them all on my website, hundreds of stories from women throughout the Middle East, like majority Saudi Arabia, talking about how the veil is not just it's not just a face covering. It is a barrier to all sorts of things. It's a barrier to being a fully fledged human, From the age of 12, many of these women are put in this sort of fabric prison. And so banning it in this country, I think, is pretty essential if we're supposed to love integration and multiculturalism, and we want everybody to get along nicely. You can't do that if you enable some cultures to have their women hidden behind a veil. And I know from the conversations I've had since this kind of, it was a 7-second video and it went just super viral.
So you struck a chord, in other words, a massive chord.
Yeah. And the women who have to live behind this veil, they claim that those that say it's out of choice is never out of choice. And I think I've seen it more. In fact, I've had emails from people who say they see it more in this country than maybe in Kuwait. You know, there's more women behind the veil in London than there would be in some of the Middle Eastern countries, clearly not in Saudi Arabia, where all women seem to be hidden behind it, although it's not a law, but it is imposed by men in the family at threat of death.
Yeah, well, this is the other element of the argument, you know, against the ban, and you know, I'm sort of ostensibly slightly torn insofar as, you know, I don't like rules and regulations, and I don't like the idea of laws that tell women or anybody what they can and cannot wear.
Yeah.
That said, because I've seen what you've been tweeting, the stories of so many women in the burqas, you know, saying that they don't want to be wearing these things. So that said, the libertarian in me wants people to be allowed to wear whatever they want, not have the government get involved. However, I think that the burqa, the face cover burqa, in whatever form it is a symbol of a sign, if you like, that women are second-class citizens, have to do what men tell them. Also, this nonsensical medieval claptrap that should a man see the skin of a woman's face, he will be consumed by uncontrollable lust and attack. I mean, we can't, in this country, allow that kind of medieval nonsense to prevail. So I'm worried about that. And I think more than that, it is how many women behind these burqas actually want to be like that. So they'll always say, well, it's their choice. They do it voluntarily. Well, actually what happens to these women is around about the age of 11 or 12, their parents stick the damn things on, and that's it. So before they even fully reach puberty, they're getting their brains washed about you have to wear this. So the issue is, you know, do we want this symbol that consigns women to sort of second-class citizenship? And do women want to wear it? Are they wearing this voluntarily? I think the answer to those two questions are yes and no.
Well, I've never been called naked so many times as I have over the last couple of weeks from men who object to me raising the issue. They'll sort of call me naked because, you know, I might have my hands showing, or my neck, or my face, or my ankles. And I think that's another thing to consider. If some women are fully covered, then it makes other women look uncovered, if you like. Maybe it makes us naked in the eyes of those men. And actually, I think if in those cultures both men and women were fully covered, I think we could argue something else, that it was freedom of expression. But actually, we have all sorts of rules about what you can and can't wear. Like, I'd like them to be a bit stricter, to be quite honest. And it really does go against some of my views about freedom of expression. But, you know, we're not allowed to wear sort of, you can't walk down the street in a G-string, for example, because that's indecent. And I would argue that it is indecent to cover a woman as if she can't be seen because it's improper and immodest. And she therefore is inviting the sin of men. You know, it's her fault if those men look upon her and have lustful thoughts. It's her fault for showing her face. And we just can't get into that. It's
nonsense. It's just nonsense. It's medieval claptrap, absolute nonsense. And, you know, we have to think about whether or not, you know, we want to be a country that sanctions that kind of thing, enshrines that, if you like. But as I say, the question is so they'll always argue, the defenders of the burqa, so well, they do it voluntarily, it's their choice. Do you want laws against what people wear? As you say, there are laws against what people wear. You can't walk down the street with a T-shirt with a swastika on it, for example, as you quite rightly say. There's actually a law that says you do have to wear clothes. You can't not wear clothes. So laws about apparel are there, they're not unknown, so we could potentially make laws about this. There is, of course, also, Kelly, the argument that there are security risks, identification risks, but the women wearing the full burqa or any of the burqas, the face covering burqas, they're kind of extracted, aren't they, from society? They can't really get a job. They can't go and work in an office. They can't sort of, socialise normally. So I think that's a worry as well, isn't it? It sort of cuts them off. And as I say, it sort of consigns them to a sort of second-class citizenship. Why are they wearing this? Because men demand it. And that doesn't stick right with me.
No. Well, it's instantly dehumanising, because I think what you see is a burqa. You don't see a woman, you don't think about how old is she, you don't think about anything about her, you don't know if she's smiling at you, you don't know, you wouldn't probably interact, you wouldn't strike up a conversation if you're at a bus stop. There's not the normal things where, obviously outside of London, where people do speak to each other, you're not going to start a conversation with a woman in a burqa because she just has this barrier. So there's not the tiny little bits of communication that we sort of take for granted. Even if it's sort of screwing your nose up at something, you can't get anything from a woman in a burqa. And I've sort of made it my business since having all of these testimonies. I'm telling you, I don't think I've ever literally sort of had tears and cried at reading someone's testimony. And I read the testimony of this young woman, and she said, I don't have any memories from outside of this house, because she is not allowed even to go out in the garden just in case a neighbour sees her face. Yep. And she only knows what day it is by looking at the calendar.
It's right. I got a text. We had a debate last week. I got a text from a viewer, an audience member, a woman saying that she lives next door to a Muslim family, and they had a lovely little girl playing in the garden, used to play with her kids as well. And around about the age of 11, one day coming out the front door was not a little girl, it was this burqa'd person, and she never saw that girl again. And I've been reading some of your testimonies on Twitter that you've been posting on social media, and what it reveals to me is that many women who have to wear the burqa don't want to. So that's what we have to take into account. Are we going to sanction a system by which women are forced to wear something they don't want to wear?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think for the very few women, for whatever reason that they choose it, we know that nothing's a free choice. Like, I'm sat here with a face full of makeup. I know.
Me too.
But I know that isn't like a truly 100% free choice, and it's all sort of the society in which I live. But that doesn't, I'm not at threat of violence or being ostracized from my family or going to hell if I don't wear makeup, or if I do wear makeup. There's sort of heavy weight behind it, and the burqa there is, so it can never be a truly free choice. So I think in a democracy where we really do want people to get along, and where we actually have some value, where we say women are equal, we can't be okay with women existing behind the veil.
Yeah, and when Sarah Pochin put that question to the Prime Minister, of course, he said, oh, I'm not going to follow you down that line, terrified. And when she actually asked that question, I think it's a very valid question. I thought she did a great job. It's opening up a debate that this nation needs to have, I think, as a matter of some urgency. The House of Commons fell into this shocked, hushed silence, as if she'd committed some great taboo. So we have a bunch of representatives of of the people who refuse to discuss this out of terror that they may be accused of Islamophobia. So I think that you're doing a great job. Sarah Pochin's doing a great job. Doing my best as well myself. We've got to talk about this, and we mustn't let Keir Starmer and the gang close this debate down. One last point before you go back to one of your normal topics. The members of the National Education Union, teachers, have today been told, or yesterday they were told, there is no legal definition of biological sex, and therefore you can carry on, you know, treating trans women, men who wear dresses, as if they are genuinely women. But there is a legal definition of biological sex now. The Supreme Court came up with it 3 weeks ago, didn't they?
Oh, I think they came up with, I think it was in the Equality Act from the off, and I think we all knew what it was, and you'd have to be pretty spectacularly stupid not to know that in an act where you have gender reassignment as one category, which I don't agree with, but it's in there, and you have sex in another, that sex didn't mean biological sex. Like, you'd have to need to sort of go back to primary school yourself if you didn't understand that that's what it meant. And I think teachers and teaching colleges or universities now, although they probably shouldn't be universities, because it does feel that they're really quite incoherent, not very well educated. And the union was, back in 2016, a man called David Hayton. He wrote the school's guidance that put men in women's spaces and forced children to call a man like himself she. And they've been captured for a really long time. And I don't know what the answer is. I mean, we can't sack them all because we can't even get enough teachers as it is. But maybe we start sanctioning schools that don't adhere to the law and don't look after the interests of all children in the school, which is telling them the truth and ensuring that activist teachers learn that their job is to teach, not to be activists.
Yeah, not to brainwash. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Couldn't agree more. Kellie Jay, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.